Welcome to Batchademia, a podcast so educational two professors could be hosting it. Hi, I'm Dr. Danielle Dick-McGue, and joining me is Dr. Bill Henneman. Welcome and happy holidays to all of our listeners. We have an exciting episode today. Not only do we get to talk about the Bachelorette finale, we get to do so with the amazing Dr. Montana Smith, who is an alum of UNI and also got her PhD at the best performance studies program in the nation, LSU. Montana, tell us what you're up to now. Tell us a little bit about life.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for a warm introduction. I am teaching at Drake right now. I do public speaking there, and then I'm also working part-time at the Iowa Arts Council here in Des Moines, helping them with communication and marketing.
Montana is so awesome. She's not only is she wildly brilliant, she is so good at getting people to have fun together. Like, okay. You're so good at creating community and having fun. And as we were like preparing things, she's also watched my kids for me.
Yeah.
So you remind us of your.
And what are college students for, exactly, if not getting them to watch your children or your pets? We have a very small list of students that we entrust with our pets.
Yeah. I mean, that's good to hear. I've done so much for Danielle and Ryan. I babysat Harper when he was so young. I've mowed their lawn. I've house sat for them, a bunch of stuff.
You painted my grout for me one time, didn't you?
Yes, and I had a fabulous time doing it. I'm not gonna lie. I actually enjoyed how it made my OCD behaviors very happy.
I feel like someone in a compliance and equity right now is like, oh God, oh God.
I think I generously paid her for her labor.
Yeah, you did.
Yep, on the up and up.
Yes, but I remember I was babysitting Harper. He was like little baby. And I don't remember where y'all were at, but they asked me to babysit, and I came over and he was just crying a lot. So I put him in is it a swaddle, Danielle, or whatever that kind of baby holder is that you put on your chest?
Oh, like the tula, the wrap thing that I had for him.
Yeah. So I put him in that, and I just did laps and was singing 3 a.m. by Matchbox 20 because it was the only song I could think of that I knew all the lyrics to. And he fell asleep on me, and it was perfect. And so, yeah, I wrote that. I think that's when I realized that I have a passion and a mild talent for mediocre karaoke.
I like it.
Yeah.
You know what? So we have to do question of the day, but I was just thinking, Danielle, the question of the day should have been, what is your go-to karaoke song? Can we switch it up?
Sure.
I think we should go with go-to karaoke song.
Okay.
Sorry to throw the audible at you all. Who wants to go first?
It's All That She Wants by Ace of Base.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
That's my go-to karaoke song.
That is good. What's yours, Bill?
So if I can find a woman to sing the woman's part, it is Love Shack by the B-52s. Yeah. And one time when we were on vacation in the Bahamas, two of my friends and I sang it. And in my memory, it is the greatest karaoke moment that's ever happened. But Elaine somewhere has a picture, and all of the Bahamians in the bar look like they're asleep. But in my mind, which is what really makes a good karaoke, they had their lighters out,
Yeah.
So yeah, my nasally voice does a good.
Mine depends. I have a lot of different ones, and I've actually spoken to my friends about this as well. It depends on who your audience is and what time it is.
Probably the type of liquor you've had too.
Yeah, and you gotta assess the vibe of whatever space you're in. But some of mine are, I do Valerie by Amy Winehouse. I do Let's Give Them Something to Talk About by Bonnie Raitt. Those are my Yeah, those are like my early night songs. And then if we get really into it and it's, you know, non-COVID, like 2 a.m., I would go for Like a Prayer by Madonna is like my all-time go-to.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's a crowd pleaser.
It is. That's why it has to be a little late so people feel like they can get into it, because I think they want to, but they need a little courage, I think.
Yeah.
I really like that you take like audience-based like public speaking and apply it to karaoke.
Yeah.
It's important to apply our skills in multiple situations.
Yeah, just a little quick audience analysis before you start off.
That's a level of karaoke I have not achieved. Like I don't have the range. Like I guess I didn't realize the range that you have. My college roommate and I used to get drunk and sing Jesse's Girl all the time. Another one that in my mind, like people were throwing bras at us and but I'm sure it was like the chef like telling us to get the hell out of this tiny dive bar in Ames, Iowa.
Yeah, I don't know words to any songs. I'm notoriously terrible at not really knowing lyrics, and I'll just make it up. So, or like, Ryan will be like, Danielle, that song's like about a stalker. And I'll be like, no, like, I thought it was just about windows. And I don't know.
What song are you talking about?
I don't know. It's some song that's about a peeping Tom that I didn't know was about a peeping Tom. Ryan would be able to, he could fill us in, but I don't know, because I don't know. I don't remember songs.
Is it Silent Eyes?
I don't think so.
I keep thinking of that I always feel like somebody's watching me. That like 80s song.
This is like
I forgot
probably from like our high school era, Bill. I don't know. If I'll fill you in. Listeners, don't worry. I'll solve this mystery for you.
We'll post it on the website. If there's any people out there who have to do with song lyrics and you want to sponsor us, we can collab.
Yes, absolutely.
Still looking for a sponsor.
So I suppose we should talk about this amazing 2-night finale.
Yeah.
And if you had to give it one word, what's your one word?
Closure.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like closure. I went with like just a lot. Like it was a lot.
It was a lot.
I don't really know if I could summarize it with one word. There was a lot going on.
I appreciate that you recognize that a lot is 2 words, because as a college professor who corrects papers, that is one of the things that I'm constantly, and you're a college professor as well. It's like, I'm always like, a lot is, or a Facebook user. Yeah.
Right.
That's got to be one of the most abused words on Facebook.
Yes. I think my word was decision. She has to make some tough decisions. So this first episode on Monday night starts out with a date with Ivan, and they're in an ice bath. So talk to me. Yes, no, thoughts on the ice bath.
I don't have any words, so I would love to hear what y'all have to say about it. I guess before I was even thinking about the ice bath, I was wondering if like the order of the fantasy suites matters or plays a part in decision making. So that's kind of what I was thinking about while Ivan was on his date, because I felt like he kind of got the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I don't know. We were talking about that in the COVID watching pod, and how like in the past, I think once they do their hometowns, they never come back, right? And so like the guys don't really know what the order is. But I feel like this time it was painfully obvious that they knew what the order was.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a lot different, because I remember, I had a couple questions. One, in earlier seasons, did they only do fantasy suites with the top 2 guys? Like, I don't remember there always being 3 until like later seasons. Do you remember, Bill?
I think that they have typically done 3, and then you do like you eliminate one, you meet her family, and then you get like sometimes they do like almost a fantasy suite for the remaining 2 guys, like a second one. Because I was thinking of the Ed. Do you remember Ed from long ago that had the erectile dysfunction problem? And he said he was sunburnt and he couldn't show her his love. But then when they did the second night thing, like when they went into the room, they did a whole montage of like fireworks going off and like faithful and
yes, I remember that because that was like actually I thought that montage was kind of brilliant.
Yeah, whoever the person, the videographer, whoever stitched it together, I was like, all right, like you earned your money this year, bud.
Well, because with Pilot Pete, there was Hannah Ann, Maddie, and Vanessa, was it?
Victoria.
Victoria, thank you. Yes, Victoria. And the 3 of them, like, were still staying with each other during the fantasy suites. And I think that was like really uncommon. And so it produces these super awkward.
Right. But then Hannah Brown, I think they weren't together because they did like the whole windmill sex thing. But I think she like met them places.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, get to see each other quite as, yeah. So I'm a no for the ice bath. I will say my wife is amazing. Elaine is amazing at ice baths. When she trained for her marathon, she would like take them all the time and it doesn't bother her. But like when I trained for my Ironman, I did them and I hated them. I loathed them. So kudos to them.
I hate being cold. There's like that. It would be like not my favorite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be cold the whole rest of the night, probably just fall asleep, trying to keep myself warm. Like I don't know. And it seems to be like a new thing that they're gonna like break world records on this show. My like 3rd grade self thinks that's awesome, but like my adult self is just like, what is happening?
You all have the Guinness Book of World Records in 3rd grade, and there was like a fight for it every time, like who got to read it at story time or like independent reading time.
I spent so much time like trying to decide what record I thought I would try to break. And like that was a huge like life goal as like a 3rd grader.
Yeah. I was always really interested in kind of like the Ripley's Believe It or Not type of records where they were just a little bit strange.
Oh yeah. Well, I think like a lot of these records are strange and
right. Yeah.
So anyway, so they seem to do okay in the ice bath together though. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, Ivan says that he's falling in love with her. They're in the awesome camper thing.
The Airstream.
What?
The Airstream camper. It's called an Airstream. Yeah, the Airstream camper.
I appreciate that you know that, Bill.
Oh yeah. Real nice camper.
I did like that they were eating donuts and drinking champagne too. Like I thought that was a pretty nice touch. I think many viewers were concerned about the quality of the bed in the Airstream camper though.
Well, Ivan's a tall guy and that bed did not look like it was long enough for him.
It was like a bed in a box. Like it was just like closed in on all sides. There was no room to even stand next to it.
Right.
So that's why I thought that Ivan kind of got shafted a little bit with these dates, except for when we get to Brendan. That's a different story though. But yeah, that was weird to me.
So what do you all think about their connection at this point? Like,
I thought they were kind of golden. I thought it went really well. They did allude in the morning to their talk about religion, which then came up when Ivan got sent home. But I thought it was a positive talk about religion, listening to them the morning after the fantasy suite, but apparently it wasn't. And so I don't know if maybe he said he was an atheist or he's agnostic or he's some other type of religion and she's some other type, but it was a Headroads.
Yeah. I have like a lot of group messages that I'm in during Bachelorette because we're all just kind of like texting back and forth the whole time. And when Ivan got sent home randomly, I got exploded with text messages about what just happened because it felt like it came out of nowhere.
And he seems so confident, too. Yeah. And I really like them together. The one thing that I did notice is I always watch to see when they say goodbye. Mm-hmm. And is it hard for them to say goodbye? Do they kind of like
is this a Danielle, like, are we getting like a professor moment here?
I guess maybe I don't know. I just noticed the nonverbals and I like want to see them, like I noticed one time when she's walking away from Zach, like their hands, like, they'll try not to like hold on to hands. And then he looks back a whole lot of times because they don't want to leave. And yeah. I noticed that they seem to part okay.
Yeah. I think that Tayshia and Ivan have so much in common that I wonder if it kind of went into maybe more friendly or like a brother-sister type of bond. I feel like she definitely had more of a lusty attraction to Zach over Ivan. And maybe that kind of drove her decisions.
Makes no sense.
I know, Ivan's perfect.
Yeah. So I think I thought it was interesting. There is some research on that whole religion component. And it is not a great predictor of success or not if you are the same religion. However, religion plays a very big role in how people view those two things, money management and division of house labor. And so it's really kind of confounding. What we find is that if you are, let's say, I'm a Muslim and I marry you and you are Christian, but we have the same beliefs, it is likely that we'll have a really good marriage as far as how we manage money and stuff like that. Conversely, if we are both ardent Christians, but we have very different beliefs, we're probably not going to have a real good marriage, a real happy marriage. Now, divorce is a whole nother thing because, some religions absolutely forbid it and people stay together in misery for years. But I thought that was kind of interesting that it sounded like they had a lot in common. They had a lot of similar beliefs, but their religions weren't the same, so they couldn't get married. So
look at that spontaneous extra credit.
Yeah.
That was good.
We're unloading the extra credits where it's the last episode. We
gotta hit y'all with some knowledge. So let's talk a little bit about Brendan. Poor Brendan.
Yeah, Ivan.
Oh, see Ivan. Yeah.
He will clean house on Bachelor in Paradise.
Oh.
Not the next Bachelor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Him and Joe, Team Bachelor.
It's going to be interesting because they're going to have, it's been so long since they've had a Bachelor in Paradise. They could cast it twice, Yeah. So, so let's get to Brendan. I felt so sorry for Brendan because his date did come actually, I think, after. So we had Ivan, then we had Zach, and then we had Brendan's date.
Right.
And they both had, I felt like at least the ice bath, there is like touching and ways to connect. And then you had the painting with Zach, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But with poor Brendan, they're like, and we're going to go ring shopping.
I'm sorry. First of all, when they They have the scene where Neil Lane is like playing the piano and then he peeks over his shoulder. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were here."
That's like Bill, like that's like your fantasy, isn't it? That you're just like playing the piano.
Yes, yeah, that I can play it that well, and yeah.
It's so wild. Yeah, the producers did Brendan wrong. I thought that date was, they could have picked something different and they chose not to.
I feel like that was like they were like, all right, here's the deal, Tayshia. We're out of shit to do. Who is the person that you don't have a good connection with and you just want it over, but you're too nice to say it? Like, we will make him stand there while you try on rings. Yeah. I felt like it was good marriage training though for him, and conversely for, like, I feel like just a lot of times in marriage you end up doing stuff that your partner's into and you're just kind of like, all right, and then they do it for you, and that's the niceties of marriage. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, he just looked like he was on the verge of puking the entire date.
I mean, I honestly could feel the anxiety. Like, it made me anxious watching it. I was so uncomfortable.
so did you all think that he was disinterested, or this like put him into like level 12 panic? I couldn't figure out, because Danielle, I think you said this, he has like no facial expression, and so the whole time I was like, is he hating this, or is he like, oh crap, am I supposed to buy a ring now? Like, none of these rings will, I can't buy them on my salary. Like,
Both. Yeah. I think like one, he has the most beautiful eyes, but my goodness, both his facial expressions and his voice are so monotone. I had such a difficult time like reading Brendan. But he also did seem panicked.
Yeah. I texted Danielle. I was like, this feels like he's getting terrorized. Like, they should be waterboarding him right now, basically. That is like how uncomfortable I felt.
When I perused the internet, it was pretty obvious. Everyone picked up on that too. Like, everybody out in the Twitterverse was just like, this is not going well. Yeah.
So what did you all think when they actually do break up? How did you feel like that went? What were your thoughts?
I think that's similar to what you were asked. I think that Brendan really genuinely was interested in Tayshia, but I think he definitely wasn't ready to be committed in a marriage again. And I believe that date helped him figure that out pretty quickly.
You know, I read something this morning that said that he was actually her number one pick, and then he broke up with her in some ways, you know, and I wonder if there's truth in that. I don't know. I think it was Reality Steve or someone who said that, so who knows?
I think it might be. I remember watching a scene where she was like, I saw myself with him at the end of this, you know, like when he was leaving.
Yeah, she did say something like it was going to be him. It was always going to be him. I guess I do think that there's like some like breakup remorse that people have, you know, where after they break up, you, what's the song by Simon and Garfunkel, Kodachrome, where it talks about like everything looks better in black and white. I think you kind of like canonize people after you break up with them, and you don't think of all the things that could have gone wrong. Obviously she wasn't that broken up about it because she ended up with Zach, but I thought it went about as well as a breakup could go. She seemed pretty mature about it. She said a younger me would be really mad, but I get it. And I feel like he was doing her a favor, though it might not seem like it at the time. You know, him saying, I'm not in a place where I'd be a good husband. And so.
So let's talk a little bit about, before we jump into the date with Zach, and we'll just handle Zach all at once. But let's talk a little bit about Ben returning. Ben, okay, so Montana, I gotta know, because
apparently, Montana's team Ben.
Yes, I have a group of I was telling you about Mackenzie Zudi and our friend Marissa. We all watch together, and we are all like Team Ben.
Hi, Mackenzie.
We said that we would adopt him and he could just like hang out with us for the rest of his life, and we would be perfectly fine with that.
So
But not like marry him.
No,
Sorry,
not marry.
Danielle.
We just want to adopt him and like have him around.
So basically, he's a puppy, is what you're saying.
Well, I think the two of them would probably be interested in marrying him.
Okay.
So I won't speak on their behalf, but yeah, we are Team Ben for sure.
But you're looking for like a puppy, is like what I'm hearing from your side, like a really good looking puppy, like eye candy.
A puppy with abs.
Yeah, a puppy with abs is kind of where I'm at in my life right now.
I'm not mad about it. Hey.
So I want to be persuaded. I want you to convince me to swoon over Ben. Tell me, like, why should I get dreamy-eyed other than because Ben can pull off skinny jeans better than I can?
Yeah.
What is it about Ben?
And he can pull off that raggedy wide neck tee. I don't know. I honestly feel like Ben is very genuine in what he says to Tayshia, and he's very intentional in his wording. And I kind of feel that way with Zach too. And I think with both of them, it feels like this might not actually be a good case for Ben, but I'm just going to keep speaking. They seem like they always know how to say the right thing at the right time, to a point where it feels, to me, with Zach, it felt like it was disingenuous. And with Ben, I always believed that he felt what he was saying.
Are you sold, Danielle?
No.
I guess you wouldn't be.
Yes and no. I mean, I do think that Ben is genuine. And I do think that in some ways he isn't as polished as Zach. And I think you feel that, but I also think that I tend to read that as maybe lacking some emotional maturity. I think I could be Team Ben in 5 years. I think Ben needs 5 more years, and then of like just healing and growing and figuring himself out. I think that he's still learning a lot about himself, and until he understands himself better, he isn't going to be as ready for a relationship.
Yeah. And I think one last thing about Ben, I definitely agree with you. And I feel like a lot of people that go on the show are like that, where they're obviously not ready to be in a relationship with anyone. But I think Ben handles it in a way where he's kind of aware of it. Like he knows that he's not ready and he's kind of still processing all of these experiences that he went through. Whereas other contestants or whoever try to channel it differently, whether it's like lashing out at each other or whatever.
I felt like I agree with Danielle. I think you could tell it was Zach. Like the life experience difference between Ben and Zach was very obvious. I also thought it was interesting. Are we just gonna talk about Ben? We're not gonna. So she kissed him, and then she seemed to immediately regret that. And then I got a text from Danielle at like 5:45 this morning because she watched it this morning and was like, "Oh my God, she kissed him," which is how I felt last night. But she said no spoilers, so
yeah, I felt that way too. It felt awkward to me because they had this very intense makeout with each other, and then they were just like, "Okay, bye."
Yeah.
Well, what did you all think about the moment where he sits down and he's like, "I love you. I should have told you this." And she's like, "I'm going to take a moment."
Yeah.
And like gets up and walks off. And I was like, ooh, at that point, I was like, she's kind of pissed at him and for good reasons. And so I didn't know how that was going to go. And then she just like sucks his face. And I'm like, oh, I hope you meant that, because it's going to be hard to turn around and break up with him in 10 minutes if you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was sold on Zach and wanted like one more reassurance. So she made out with Ben, which good for her. But I don't think she had any intention of keeping him. And I kind of felt like even when he was talking to her parents, I felt like you could tell she was not as sold on him. So I feel like she thinks she should be sold on him.
Yeah, I saw that in your comments that when he was speaking to her family, it felt more like he wasn't speaking about her, but speaking about how she made him feel. And I definitely agree with that.
Right. So my friend Christy Marchesani, hi Christy, said that, and it was a really good point. And then once she said it, like that's all I could hear when he was talking to her family was like, she makes me feel so good. I really like the way she makes me feel. I'm happy that, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it was never like, I think I respect these things about her. I think these things are great about her. And when she was talking to Zach, when she, you know, they had kind of this conversation that I'm sure we'll talk about, he said, you know, I don't care what you do with your career. I want to be with you. I support you. You're awesome. And it was very different. And probably some of that has to do with like we said, the maturity. You know, I think at a certain point you get older and you kind of realize that you're not the center of the universe. You know, if you're really going to take on a partner in a relationship, you need to like think about, instead of me, the we, and like, how do we support each other? And yeah.
Yeah, I thought that I really noticed the different ways that they talked. It's interesting because I think that Ben is more charismatic than Zach. I think that he is likely to be someone that can make an impression quicker than Zach can. Whereas I think Zach is more articulate and being able to express the way that he's feeling than I think Ben is. So it was such an interesting thing, but I definitely was aware of how Ben would talk about how he made or she made him feel instead of the way that, like, the things that he appreciated about her, if that makes sense, or them together, as you said, Bo.
I wondered how much her dad's comments played in her decision to send him home too, because she seemed not, I mean, she seemed like she appreciated them, but she also seemed like she didn't appreciate them in some ways. And only the way your parents can make you feel when they tell you something that you know is right, but you're kind of like, come on, mom and dad, like, let me do what
Let me figure this out on my own.
Well, or even like, not like, let me do what I want. But you're the voice of reason and I know what I should. It's kind of like when you were a kid and your parents were like, I'm going to let you make the decision, but you know what you should do. You know, damn it.
I wonder that too. I don't know if this is common, but it felt like she really was seeking her dad's approval and trying to figure out which guy he liked more. And I didn't know if that's common with bachelorettes in particular, that they kind of go to their fathers for advice on who they're going to marry.
I definitely think, and Danielle, this is more in your area, but thinking back to all of the bachelor and bachelorettes, it seems like the men make a decision, the bachelors make a decision, and they tell their parents, and then the parents say, oh, that's a good decision. The women seem to ask for permission from somebody and then make their decision,
Right.
which is odd. Yeah. Go ahead.
It was also interesting because you didn't see any of the guys ask for permission to propose. Right. And you almost always have someone that does that. Or even if they're like, oh, this is like a little old fashioned, I don't like need to do that. They're still like, I'm going to do that. You know? So I thought that was interesting. I meant to bring this up last week and forgot. We had a person email us and point out.
Oh yeah, Megan. Hi, Megan.
Yeah,
Megan Boyd Costner. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, Megan's awesome. And
shout out.
She asked, one thing that she pointed out is the circumstances where the family's coming to them and not being able to go to any of their homes, was kind of talking about how that can function potentially as an equalizer, that you don't get to see their houses. They don't have to like prepare a meal or go through all of the work to kind of have a camera crew in. And I thought that was really interesting. I had read somewhere that at least in the last few years, they actually aren't going to their houses, that like their stage homes, that they're in. And so, and I don't think that that was how it was in some of the earlier seasons. But I thought that that was like such an interesting point to sort of think about the labor that goes into like preparing a home for a visit, and how homes themselves can be a sign of class and status and things like that, in a way that this was sort of, that was removed from this
Right.
time.
The ladies in the Hannibal watching pod made a point that they would never marry a guy without going to their house to see their level of cleanliness, and which I was like, that's a fair point. Like, you know, dating someone and going to see their living space, and not like how much money they have, but like the level of cleanliness. I feel like that is pretty important. Danielle looks like she's gonna pop an aneurysm.
I like, okay. I adore my husband.
Danielle likes her floors grouted.
I love Ryan dearly, but I was just thinking about, so when we first started dating, he was living with his friend Cam, and their apartment was disgusting. And I remember, like, I don't know if they actually ever washed their clothes. There's just this heaping pile of clothes. When they moved out of the apartment, I think that like they put all of their pots and pans from the sink into like laundry baskets and took them to their parents' houses and washed them in a dishwasher. And I'm like, that should have let me know that I needed to make enough money to hire someone to clean for us. You know, like, Ryan has learned how to properly do the dishes and laundry, but yeah, I saw it, but I was blinded by love, and here we are 15 years later.
That's so sweet. I kind of agree though, and I mean, even in that situation, if you're going to their homes or these staged homes or whatever they are, I think it gives you a better understanding of kind of what your future with them could possibly look like, which I think definitely could change decisions. So I like the equalizer of everybody just hanging out at the La Quinta.
I feel like Ben probably is fairly clean though, because he's ex-military.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I don't have a vibe on Zach, but I think, no. Yeah.
He sweats a lot. That's what I know about Zach. Poor guy.
I think everyone did.
But he was like the champion sweater. That part last episode where they were kissing and it was like dripping off of him, I was like, oh, poor guy.
Well, so let's talk about Zach a little bit. So they get to go on their date and they are covering each other in paint, which Connie, I believe, thought was disgusting.
Yes.
Connie
Hansen was having none of it.
She was not into the paint. I was like, bring on the paint. So much better than ice baths. Like, whatever. So Bill, you said that, and I don't quite remember this, so fill me in. They had a conversation about kids, and
oh yeah, they did have a conversation. And he told his mom he could see himself having kids, but previously he had not. And then I think Tayshia kind of asked him about it, you know, like, hey, are you just saying that you want kids? You know, what happens? Because I think that's pretty important to her, which is pretty big sticking point. You know, if one person wants kids and one person doesn't, I don't know how you resolve that. You know, if it's a very like, I want them, I don't. But then he said he did. So there was a lot of people online that were wondering and I don't know if people here are familiar with Meatloaf, who is one of the greatest songwriters of all time, but he wrote a song called Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. And it's basically about this guy that wants to have sex. And so he lies so that this girl has sex with him, but he promises to be with her for the rest of his life. And then it ends him basically saying he's waiting for the end of time because he can't be with her anymore. And people online were like, is that going to basically be like, oh, this was a promise too far? Because it turns out, and Danielle, you'd know better than me, but kids are expensive and they're a lot of work.
Indeed, they pee on you.
Yes, that was another text I got this morning.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts, Mantina? I want to hear what you
on Zach or their date in particular?
Their talk about kids.
Oh, I feel like he's always been kind of wishy-washy about what his exact answer is on that. I have never really come to a clear conclusion. I don't even think I know now if he really meant it or not.
Bill, is there research on this? Is that something that you know off the top of your head or anything about?
Yeah, it's a major sticking point. I mean, if one person wants them, generally what you find is that both people don't really know. And if there's communication, they kind of come to an understanding. However, if your partner does not want them and you want them and there's not communication around that, it's not a good outcome. The other thing you have to think about is it's one thing to say, I want kids. It's a whole nother thing to have kids, especially if there's infertility issues. Then you need to think about, are we going to go through IVF, which is not a walk in the park from what I understand. You know, it's expensive. It's not very pleasant for the wife because of the hormone treatments. And there's no guarantee that it can work, which is really mentally stressful on people. And then you can talk about adoption, but people have feelings around that. And so part of it, my thing was him saying, yeah, I want kids. And it's like, probably your better answer would be like, I'm open to having kids, but we need to explore that and talk about what that looks like. Because when you just carte blanche say it, like, she might think, well, I want to adopt 10 kids, and he may not be on board with adoption, or she may want to foster kids, or he may want to foster kids. And some people have, you know, strong feelings about that. So, and maybe they had those conversations. I was just, as I was watching it, I was like, oh man, that's a big conversation that's being wrapped up into 35 seconds or whatever it was. And I worry about people watching it and thinking like, that's the conversation you have. I want kids.
It can be a negotiation, I think, between two people. You know, I think it took, you know, I had kids a little bit later, and it took me a long time to decide if I wanted to have kids, in part because I didn't know, do I want to have kids or do I want to have kids because that's just what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, it took us a really long time to get pregnant. And so, you know, I think that it's just, I think that that's something that sometimes you also figure out as you go through life. And he is older. I mean, like, he's 30, isn't he 36?
38, I think.
38? Yeah. Oh gosh, that old?
Yeah, his eggs are shriveled up.
Oh my goodness.
That's beautiful imagery.
Thank you. I'm kind of a minor league poet, if you didn't know.
So they're in the fantasy, they have their fantasy suite. One, he's in a hotel.
Yeah. With a huge bedroom. Yeah. Like, his bedroom compared to Ivan's box bed is not fair.
I wanted to know what they had set up for Brendan. Like, if he would have gone to the fantasy suite, where were they taking him? Like, was it gonna be, I don't know what it
guys, I told you, they knew she was getting rid of him and they didn't even get a room.
Like, that's why they had like all the beautiful lights in the trees at their dinner, because they were like, this is it.
Yep. Had he been like, no, I'm staying, they would have been like, shit. Calling the La Quinta front desk and like, what do you got? And they're like, well, we only have 2 single beds. All right, fine, screw it. Let's do it. Just get him in the 2 single beds. Right. Push them together. We'll push the beds together, which Elaine's grandma had. And she was like, when we went and stayed with her the first time, she's like, and you can push those beds together if you want. And we're so young and dumb. And we're like, yeah, let's do that. And I ended up like falling into the crack. And then the next morning I was like, this is not happening. Like separate beds for us. Separate beds.
Oh, that's hilarious. Like, so they do tell each other that they love each other. Which I think it's quite common on the show to have the contestant say that they love them, but not as common for the bachelor or the bachelorette to say I love you back.
I read an article about that, and apparently it is a big no-no for the I think they call him the principal or the chief. So the person who is the bachelor or the bachelorette to say I love you back. Like they try to not let them do that because they don't want it to screw up the production of the show. So when I heard what?
Which we saw earlier this season with Claire.
Yeah, that is why they don't do it, right? Because of that.
But they did dance on the bed, and that did look like fun. We can all, that is a COVID approved activity. So.
I love jumping on hotel beds. Like even now as an adult, that's one of the first things I do.
Oh, our big thing right now is we put all of our laundry on our bed, and then the kids take the dog's like stairs that he has, and they put them on the bed, and they jump off the stairs onto the giant laundry pile. So
that sounds
sounds so fun.
Exciting bed activities.
You should get a dresser, stairs on the dresser, like a higher,
That would be wild.
They danced on the bed, and then they also had that where they kind of learned that choreography for the first dance, and that was super sweet. And yeah, I mean, I have a background in like thinking about, dance and how it like brings people together, and I think that's a very intimate way to get to know one another, kind of like through the nonverbals, like you mentioned, Danielle. So I think any dance or any date that might involve dance is a good opportunity to kind of build a stronger connection.
Ooh, so I have a question for you, Montana. Do you think that was legitimate, or do you think they're setting Tayshia up to be on Dancing with the Stars? Because that's where my mind went. It was like, boom, like they want her on Dancing with the Stars. And she did not look like an exceptionally good dancer.
Yeah.
But she looks like she should be a really good dancer. Like she's built like she should, like,
Yeah, I mean, well, the Bachelorette has a tradition at this point of being on Dancing with the Stars, so I would love to see her on there.
I thought that I really loved that moment, in part because it started out and it was so uncomfortable. She was so nervous. I was like, ooh, where's this going? And he did such a great job of, I wouldn't say calming. He didn't try to calm her down. He just kind of let her feel what she was feeling, and then let her move through it. And I thought that was really, I might have started to become a Zach fan a little bit in that moment.
You could tell he has danced and she is not. You could also tell that she gets very edgy when she is not immediately good at something. Like you could tell it was really bothering her that she was not getting it right away. And I felt like watching, you may not know this, I was in show choir in high school, so kind of a dance expert. But you could tell that he's taken some type of dance lesson, like he was getting it very quickly.
That's awesome.
I really did it, much like Montana said. I learned something today, but it was a very good way to, if you're shy, force girls to interact with you, which was really my only game in high school. So
next question is gonna be, what's your best show choir song?
Oh, like the all-time best show choir song? Oh, I don't know. I'll think about it. Next question. Yeah.
All right. In the future. So I guess when Zach meets her family, what are there other things that we haven't brought up yet that you'd like to mention about those moments?
I thought oh, go ahead.
I would like to, like, the way that the two of you talk about Ben is like how I feel about, or how I felt about Zach. Like, it took me a really long time to believe what he was saying, or like that he felt those emotions behind it. And I think that was the point where I actually did feel like he was being genuine, and that he is just a very well-spoken and probably the most articulate person that I've ever seen on the show.
I thought he seemed very earnest when he talked to her parents. I felt like he owned his past, which can't be easy for him. And, you know, we were talking in our house, like, if you had a problem with addiction, like, it's got to come up at some point with your in-laws, probably. When do you bring it up, and how do you bring it up? And, you know, I don't have any good advice for that. But I felt like he did a really good job in, you know, kind of telling him what his life was and how it's going to make him a good spouse. And I was fairly sold.
So let's talk about this proposal. Would you
Spoiler alert, by the way, if you have not watched the yeah. She may pick any of the 4 people we've talked about at this point, or no one. Turn it off right now.
I think we probably already have spoiled things.
Act like we don't know.
So let's talk about this final scene. What do you all think? Like,
before I get into too much, I just want to say Tayshia's dress game has been on point all season, and this wedding engagement dress was like kind of a downer for me.
oh, why? Why was it a downer for you?
Well, I was talking to my group of friends, and we thought, y'all know the Xenon Girl of the 21st Century, and they're kind of like futuristic costumes. It felt like that material. And the bow on the back was kind of weird, and just like the one strap. We talked a lot about how we were a little bit upset with the dress that she chose.
I thought at first you were saying she looked like Xena warrior princess, and I was I'm not seeing that. Like, which shows you how much I pay attention to the dress. I'm out, guys.
I thought that I was really I was unsurprised with the way that she broke up with Ben. I was unsurprised. I think that she preferred to make decisions before they became too hard of decisions, right? So I thought that it was thoughtful of her to break up with Ben before letting him get to the stage of potentially proposing and then having to say no. But I was also really unsurprised by any of that.
Yeah, I also am wondering, because there's kind of like a conspiracy that the producers maybe didn't edit this well together, because she's like wearing this jean romper or something one day, and then on her date with Zach she's in this black dress, and then it goes back to her in the romper when she breaks up with Ben. So I'm wondering if that actually all happened in the same day, and then she was just there with Zach the rest of the time.
Yeah, Kim Hanna pointed that out to me, and I did not notice that. But yeah, definitely there was something there. The editing was not up to the standards it usually is. You could tell that it was out of sequence.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm wondering if she maybe broke up with Ben before she even went on her date with Zach, and then at that point she was just focused on like spending her time with him.
I wondered if she said, "Can I go on a date with him, and then I will make that decision, and then we will move on to Zach," you know, like, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Final scene. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Danielle.
No, that's good. I was going to say, I thought that the proposal was beautiful, but I'm also a sap and I sob at these stupid things. I don't know why. I just get really happy when people are in love. And actually, I should say, I think like beautiful friend moments, like student teacher moments. I'm just weepy for people caring about each other. And so I thought that it was a really beautiful proposal, though. You could feel her nerves. I wasn't 100% sure if she was gonna be engaged at the end of this, but I also felt like everything that was exchanged between them was genuine.
I agree. He's intense.
I cried as well, Danielle. I was bawling like a baby too. And I didn't expect that because I didn't like Zach always, but kind of what you're saying, the way that they speak to each other and just their intentionality with the words that they choose to say, it's like I feel like they are genuinely like in love with each other.
I like that they're both dorks.
Yeah.
I think their dorkiness connection is good, but there are other ways that like they just don't feel like quite matched to me. And I don't know, maybe that's because I also think that she's gorgeous, and I just don't find him attractive. So maybe some of it's just that mismatch for me. I don't know.
I did not cry. Not to get too like manly on you. I thought he was almost uncomfortably intense at times because she doesn't seem like a very intense person. And so I think that's what I'm picking up with like what you said, Danielle, is that there's some things that they match on, but then there's other things that I'm not sure they're a good match. And then also I wonder what it would be like to be married to somebody that intense as he is, if you are not also always going in the same direction they are. And I wonder if sometimes you have a tendency to get run over by them. So I was reading Michelle Obama's book, and she was talking about how one of the things when she first started dating Barack Obama was that she had to learn how to not get caught up in the hurricane that is Barack Obama, which I never thought, but you don't just, well, up until this current presidency, you don't just stumble into the presidency. Like, if you're a politician, your life has to be curated all the way up. And to be a spouse of that person, I think it'd be easy to just be like on their ride with them. And I wonder if somebody like Zach, if that like, do you have to worry about that? Like, is your life just going to be like him having this idea and going for it and you feeling like you're getting railroaded all the time? That's my question. If you
I think I feel like his family is kind of like that as well. So I think that's a fair question. If she's going to marry into she seems a lot more outgoing than they are.
I got the vibe that the man was the head of the household in Zach's family.
Yes, very much so.
Sorry, Danielle, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that ring is going to get really messy when she cooks all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting. I didn't know if they were still together. I saw her Instagram story. They were like they were in that, but when her last post was like, oh, it's the finale. This is like bittersweet. And I thought that was like such an interesting, I don't know. Like, I feel like if I was engaged to someone and they were like, oh, it's like a bittersweet that they're breaking up with other people. Like, I don't know. I think I'd be like, bye. Like,
yeah.
You got to decide at some point. Like you got to grow up at some point, Peter Pan. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also, full disclosure, I knew very early on that Zach actually was going to win because I read a spoiler. And I think that kind of clouded my judgment about him because as she began like dating these other people, I was like, why is she choosing Zach over all these great guys, And I think that kind of maybe clouded how I felt about him. But it seems like they're doing great. They're obviously, I think they were on Good Morning America and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I wasn't sure if they were going to still be together either. Because Reality Steve at one point said she ends up with him, but they break up. And then he was like, now they're back on. So it's just a whirlwind.
I feel like COVID probably has an impact on that. They haven't like had a chance to go out and get really drunk at a bar and get in a good argument about something really meaningless. And then I feel like how you address that argument the next morning says a lot about how your marriage is going to go.
Yeah.
It kind of brings, so we were going to, instead of extra credits, Bill had this awesome idea that we would offer one thing from our field to help the happy couple on their journey. And I was like thinking about this because most of my research isn't really on interpersonal relationships. It's more about community and culture. And so I was trying to think about it, but I did have a colleague give me really good marriage advice, which was make sure you know how to fight with each other.
Ooh, that is really, yeah.
So like you kind of talking about like the bar argument or whatever, like I think that learning how do we fight with each other? What are we like when we fight? Do you, like, I'm a talker, I'm an external processor, if like Ryan, he tends to be, he's like that, but he also needs more time thinking about something before it comes out of his mouth. Or like for me. And so like learning to give each other what each other needs in an argument too is really important. And so I don't know, Bill, you made me think of that with your comments, so I decided to move us there.
No, I think that's really good. Like, and just fighting fair, like, I mean, it's one thing, it's important to stand up for yourself. There's definitely a way to stand up for yourself that doesn't degrade your partner. And I think that's probably when they say the first year of marriage is so difficult, that's probably a lot of it is figuring out also what battles do I take? What battles do I not take? Because I mean, I think probably in every relationship, you realize there's just some things that it's just not worth your time. Like, if I was going to pick one, I would probably say you never go wrong making sure that your partner's happy and learning about what makes them happy and then making sure you do those things. So it kind of goes back to one of our first episodes. We talked about the love languages. And though I don't think that there's actually like love languages, what I do think is that your partner appreciates some things more than others. And it helps you out not one bit to do things that you appreciate that they don't. So if your partner likes clean bed sheets, clean the bed sheets. That's super easy. Don't go buy them a diamond ring if they don't like jewelry, right? Then you just end up feeling a little bit annoyed that you put out for this diamond ring and they don't appreciate it that much, where you could have just taken the 20 minutes to wash the bed sheets and it's going to make them happy. So
that's awesome. Montana, do you have something? What?
I don't have any marriage advice.
Relationship advice.
I like what you both said. I would also say,
this is turning into like a discussion forum in my online class. Danielle, what you said is really good. I really like it. The things you are saying are good and they make me feel good.
One other thing, Montana, you might relate to this that I was like thinking about too, and this is kind of just life advice, but I always think about Kenneth Burke. Oh, my kid is in here. Hey, Harper.
Do you know any really small tube, like littler than a toilet paper roll, like really tiny?
A really small tube? Are you doing a craft?
Yeah.
You know what, Harper?
Go ask Dad for it, and I'll come help you in just a little bit.
Just find a roll of toilet paper, Harper. Just take it all off the roll. The look Danielle just shot me was like, shut the hell up, Henninger.
Yeah, smaller than toilet paper.
Oh, I don't know what to tell you, bud.
Yeah, we've got about 20 toilet paper rolls downstairs for crafts, so I'll come and help you in just a minute, bud. What I was going to say is comic and tragic frame. Is that, so Kenneth Burke talks about comic and tragic frame, and it's a way of viewing the world. A comic frame means that you see people as mistaken, not evil, where in a tragic frame, you think that someone's evil because they did something wrong. That's who you are. And I think it's so important to see your partner and just, people in general that you're having issues with as mistaken and therefore capable of doing better, as opposed to like, oh, well, this is just how you are. And, you're a jerk face and hump.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think just being open with your feelings, because I think oftentimes people just bottle up how they're feeling instead of having like an adult conversation about if someone made me mad, why, and trying to resolve it that way. I think also, and this might just be me personally, but I don't think it is. I think you just have to find someone that you have fun with together. That's always what, like, you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person. So you want to make sure, for me, that it's going to be a fun life to live.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So,
season and a statement.
It's been a wild ride.
I think the ending is, how did I say this to myself? It felt like a rom-com ending to a horror movie.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. I think that's the title of this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say it again so I get it right when I write it. A rom-com ending to a horror flick.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is good.
Like they literally rode off into the sunset together in their craft taxi.
Wow.
You know, I feel like I'm cheating a little, but I think that my word for this season is actually decisive. That I felt between Claire and Tayshia, and maybe it's their maturity level and age and stuff, but they both seem so much more decisive than so many of the other seasons, especially compared to Pilot Pete.
In different ways, but both like commendable. I feel like, you know, I mean, they got what they wanted, so yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also want to share my favorite meme that I saw.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if y'all can see this. There you go. It says The Bachelorette ending tomorrow. Sad. The Bachelorette starting in 2 weeks.
That's a good setup, Danielle. We doing it?
We're totally doing it. Are you kidding?
Right. So there will be a season 2 of Bachelorette, and it will be Matt James.
I'm so excited for Matt James.
Yeah.
I am too. I think it's going to be a good season. There are some comments about like his cast seems a little bit younger, kind of similar to Pete's season. So we'll see how that goes.
I went and looked into it, and there are some shit stirs in there. It's gonna be what I come to the table for, which is a lot of drama. Like I know Danielle comes for the love stories. I come for the train wreck.
Yes.
And you all, our listeners, come for all of the education.
Yes, yeah. We will throw in bits of educational-ish stuff. So is that it? Is that a wrap on the season?
Absolutely. Happy holidays.
Yeah. Whatever holiday you separate.
Absolutely.
Celebrate. Did I say separate? Jeebus crabbers.
Celebrate.
Happy New Year. At 11:59 p.m. everything will get back to normal.
I think that's how that works.
Montana, you get the last word.
Do I?
Any shout outs? I should, before that, thank you to everyone who's listened this season. Thank you to our mothers and mother-in-laws who have listened. Our former students, our current students, I think our spouses who have put up with me, my spouse at least.
I got Ryan to talk about The Bachelor for like 20 minutes last night. I feel like it was an important milestone in our relationship.
Next season, we will have a spouse episode where we have both spouses.
Ooh, that sounds fun. I would say I think my last comment is this is really the first season I've been super invested the whole way through. And it really felt like I was immersed. Like every night when The Bachelor was on, I watched it live. I was scrolling through memes, texting my friends. Like it was just like such an immersive few weeks. So I would just like to say that, and then hi to all my friends that I watch with. Nice. Marissa, Mackenzie, my best friend Ellen, and my friends Sarah and Megan.
You have a lot of M names for friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. You've been listening to Batchademia with your hosts, Doctors Daniel Dick McGew and Bill Henniger. All opinions expressed on this show are solely the opinion of the person who spoke them. If you like our podcast, please consider following us, leaving us a 5-star rating, and a positive review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, please share with your friends, family, and other ardent Bachelor content lovers. If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at batchademia@gmail.com or on the Twitter with the handle @batchademia. Thanks for listening.